Good morning. Can you dig it? Good morning. Welcome to Big Drum Bear, your gayest Jew drumming bear host that agrees with everything. I wanted to try and get OBS studio program working here. I just downloaded this today, and I was gonna try and get it to cocaine addict. Oh man, I was gonna try and get it to pop up with like a Reuben Report opener screen, but Big Drum Bear Report or not gay Reuben Report is what I was thinking I'd do instead. I need to play around with it more. I need to figure out how to make that thing work. Good morning. Let's see here. All right. I thought y'all would appreciate that. Let's see here. Wow. So honky, that will take a little work. Yeah, I'm not as talented as say guys like Kyle Cavanaugh, where you can throw a tune at them and they can just bust it out for you. I will probably have to spend some time working on a couple of those because, man, some of those are intense. Like I know Mayor and Pants Feet. I can't even say his name. Pants Face Feet Bear. I forget. Yeah, he wants me. Both of them want me to do Hot for Teacher, and that is not an easy tune. I mean, I could do my own version of it here, even though I don't have an Alex Van Halen size drum set. I have a double bass drum pedal, and that's essentially what I need to make a lot of that work. But that's a rough song because Alex is a monster. I'm not gonna lie. Did I see the picture of the guitar you just got? No, I did not. Go with ZZ Top. Yeah, Frank Beard style drumming. You can't go wrong. I mean, I grew up listening to Rush and Dream Theater, Steve Vai, and we're talking guys like Neil Peart, Mike Portnoy, Mike Mangini on drums, Greg Bissonette. Yeah, I think that's how you pronounce his name. One of the best drummers of all time, Greg Bissonette. Such a cool guy and just down to earth kind of guy too. What? Okay, so Spiritual from Village Vanguard, John Coltrane. All right, I'm going to look that one up, and I'm going to find out about that. In fact, I'll do it right now. Let's see here. Pulling it up on the YouTubes. Oh, hey, I'm Not Norm just uploaded another thing. Norm McDonald's Miller Lite commercial versus Budweiser. That will be cool. I'll have to look that up later. I'm always liking the I'm Not Norm channel. But let's see. Spiritual on Coltrane. Yeah. Let's see here. I'm pulling it up.
This is Rick Blomquist. His life is pretty.
That's an ad.
Then he laid on a Serta and realized his life was only just sort of comfortable.
I feel living a lie.
The Serta, I comfort hybrid
mattress. If you get a Serta mattress today, promo code Big Drum Bear, then you're gonna sleep way better, and the intensity of crazy leftists isn't gonna drive you as insane as it would if you didn't get a good sleep on a Serta. Anyway, here we go. Said to do that because I was playing an ad in the background of my thing, so it seemed fitting. Huh. Yeah, I'm going to have to give this a listen. This is some... Who's on the drums, does it say? Let's see here. Let me turn it down a little bit. Didn't want to blast you guys out with the beautiful jazz. Someone in the comments says, I literally came from a Slayer video to this. That's funny. Yeah, that's a bit of a difference. Yeah, it doesn't say. It doesn't have show more. Oh, there we go. Who was in the John Coltrane Quartet? I have to look that up. Oh, I don't know. I want to know who the drummer was on that one. That would be cool. Hey, Tyler. Good morning to you. Just saw you there. Impaler Bear, good to see you. Thanks for coming by. Only for the drinking part of it, Impaler. That's great. Impaler, you know what? Guess what? Welcome to Wrench Life. You're vetted. You've been around for a while. Shady had a little conversation with me about vetting people, or she left me a comment on one of my videos about that, and it might be to my credit. And so I do want to be a little more wise about that. I appreciate the input from other bears. I prefer to give a wrench to all that I can, but if a wrenching is necessary, I won't hesitate. 1984 news. I got to find out who you are, because you're new. I haven't seen you around before. And you might end up with some wrenchness yourself. Oh, was Elvin Jones? How could I not know that it was Elvin Jones? I should know that. Come on. That's an obvious. Good morning, Liberty Snake. Good to see you. You know what? I'll pull it back up just for a moment. Honky. Oh, there was a resolve there. Oh, okay. Yeah, I see. I kind of glossed over that. Huh. That is pretty cool. I've got to get more into it. I don't want to leave people hanging while I'm just listening. But Honky, thank you. I always appreciate some good jazz. Yeah, I'm gonna listen to it. I'm gonna listen to that whole thing, of course, because Coltrane is the flippin' man. Like, you can't do better than Bird, man. Yeah, it's so good. Did I say Bird? Am I talking about the right guy? No, I'm mixing terms in my head. I don't remember. It's just good, man. It's so good. Yeah, there's I mentioned it before. If you're ever out this way, Peoria area or East Peoria, the bear is yeah, because that's what we're talking about, Dom. Very nice. There is, if you're ever out this way and you want to take, like, you just hang around in Peoria or something like that, and you want to take an amazing college class, Larry Harms over at Illinois Central College has a class in jazz history. If you could take that class, take it. It's probably one of the best classes I ever had out there. And amazing information if you like jazz music, if you like to understand the history of blues and all of that stuff. You'll hear about musicians that maybe you hadn't heard of before that are just incredible. And of course, Coltrane was covered pretty well. But Larry is a saxophone player, so obviously he's going to cover that. How can he not? It would be inappropriate. Yeah, it was way cool, Honky. That's right. Parker is Bird. I knew that. I knew I was wrong as soon as I said it. I knew I was wrong as soon as I called Coltrane Bird. Parker's obviously Bird. Let's see here. So I'm just checking. Yeah, so drums. That's what I wanted to talk with y'all about today, because that is what I love. That's what I do. Now, I don't know if I'm in reverse for you guys. I don't know how the image comes through for it. It might be reversed, and if so, oh well, that's just how it is. Um, excuse me. I thought that it flipped the image for you when I did it on here, but maybe not. Uh, let's see for a second here. I'm just curious about something. Well, yeah, it does. It flips the image, doesn't it? When you guys see it, put up my right hand. Hi. Hey, Roy Bear. Welcome. You look right. Yep, that was my right hand that I put up there. Hang on, Roy Bear. Roy Bear, I've seen you around. You're good people. Guess what, Roy Bear? Since you said Coltrane's your favorite, you're now a mod. How about that? You got to welcome new people here. Like, subscribe, and share. Get a wrench. If you're not completely in left field, that's a double entendre. Yeah, I had a feeling. Not flip. Well, then you can read this. This is what I was going to bring out here. All right. This poster is, I'm going to go back to my image so I know. This is your 40 rudiments. These little rhythmic patterns that are listed out here. It's basically like the alphabet of drumming. You have all these different little combinations of things, and they are the foundation for a lot of different stuff. But you can even break this down even further, and it becomes even simpler than that. There's a great drummer. Hang on, let's see if I can grab this poster over here. Great drummer by the name of why is the name escaping me now? Benny Greb, German guy. Benny Greb, and he came out with a thing called The Language of Drumming, and this was a poster that was included with his DVD. And he takes the fundamentals of drumming and breaks it all down into binary and ternary letters, in a sense. So it's a combination of sound and silence, or you could say right hand, left hand, dots or rights, dashes or left, or vice versa. And it's combinations of all this kind of stuff. So you get one note, you could have all four being played in a 4-note phrase, but it's multiples of 2 in that sense. You could have one right and 3 lefts, or quadruple strokes, or just triple strokes in a single, right, to separate them. Then you can get into the 3-note phrases, combinations between your right and left hand, or between playing and not playing. So that's essentially a breakdown of what we're doing. Music is essentially, well, I do hand out wrenches like candy. I just flipped back to the chat there. Because I like the people. I enjoy people to come, and I like people to be able to say what they're here to say. And, if we're proponents of free speech, we can handle it. Right? So let's see if you can see what I'm doing here. Yoink. All right. So I got this practice pad. Right? Drumming is essentially combinations of sound and silence, right? So I can do, if I think of the first thing, I'm going to put this poster up here. You may not see it. I'm going to go back and forth between the camera here. There we go. Let's see. So let's look at this. I need a stick. This first one, letter A, right? And that's going to be 1 played and 3 not played. How many different ways could I do that? I could say 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I could do it with left hand, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. I could look at it as between the right and the left hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I could look at it as each time it's the dot, I could play it as a double stroke, like there we go. play it like that, or I can play all the others. Play it like that. So there's different ways to think about that letter, if you will. Or I could have all four of them. I could run through, like I said, or the first four, A, B, C, and D. You're just moving the dot to a different place within that grouping of four, right? So it'd be, if I played all four A, B, C, and D like this, I could play one, two, no, let me see if I can do that right. One, I'm going to speed the tempo up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. Or as we count, I'd count this like 16th notes. That's what we say in music is taking the bass unit in music, which we call a quarter note, right? There's usually 4 beats or quarter notes to a measure in most music, Western music. And each of those quarter notes or those beats can be subdivided. And we subdivide it in this case into 4 little subdivisions that we're going to call 16th notes. You could fit 16th notes into a measure of 4 quarter notes or 4/4 time. So we're going to play 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and so the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4 is our quarter note bass, and then I'm going to play I'm going to accent. How would I say that? I'm going to just play those beats for letters A, B, C, and D, right? So we're having on the first, then on the second, then on the third, then on the fourth. I'll do like 4 times on A, then 4 on B, 4 on C, 4 on D. So I'll put the in-between notes now so you can hear where that would fit, right? So I'll go like, I'll accent, I'll make a bigger stroke on the one that's supposed to be standing at the dot note for that example. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and up. So this stuff, and that stuff is the fundamentals of how you make these sticks do what you want them to do. That's what it all comes down to. It's combinations of all these different little things to appropriately provide like rhythmic glue for music, right? Because when you play music, when you play different styles and things, you're gonna have different types of drum beats. For example, right? We've talked about some of this in the past. You've got, oops, there we go, fixing my cymbal there. Turn this back up just a hair. Put this practice pad off to the side, and I'll bring this around so you can actually see a little better. It's not the best angle, but it'll work. All right, so should be able to see what I'm doing. Oh no, getting unplugged here. There we go. So let's do this. I'm fixing my microphone too. Cool. So just real simply here. Rock beat. Now let me turn my snare. Mostly like an AC/DC beat there, right? Oh, Phil Rude, like. Little AC/DC stuff, real simple. You could have funk, right? And they get a little more subdivision stuff going on. Little funky kind of thing. How about Latin? Like you can't really see my cymbal as much unless I lean back. Simple little samba sort of beat there. Jazz patterns, right? jazz kind of spang-a-lang swing pattern. You've got, what's another good example to share with you? So we talked about jazz, or rock, funk, jazz, Latin. Those are some of the essentials. There's lots of other stuff too. My failed attempt at a reggae kind of feel, something you might hear in a Bob Marley album. Ska was a big thing in the 90s. And that was more like just straight ahead rock, but with a little bit of a upbeat emphasis from the guitar, right? It was always playing the in-between beats. Like, you could play the upbeats along with them. Kind of get some of our modern day pop beats through that. A lot of pop beats are related to stuff like that. Let's see here. I want to do it like that. You won't hear a lot of that stuff in pop music, but you could do it. So, a variety of different styles of music, right? A variety of different beats and things that we can play, but it all comes out of your rudiments, right? And even more fundamentally, the basics, like your letters. You're breaking it down into binary and ternary beats, right? So none of that's my own stuff per se. Like, people have been developing that for years. Now, the rudiments, they came from the Civil War days, and probably even plenty before that. Militaries had drummer boys that would play these signals, and they'd march across battlefields and give direction to the troops with these different drum signals, right? One of these days when I get the One Button Studio working, I'll have to share with you guys a little bit from the fife and drum manual from the United States Army that I have from 1864. It's like Civil War era manual for musicians. And it has all kinds of different drum beats and rudiments and things like that in there. Stuff that we still play today, but it's just annotated a little differently. And it's really, really, really cool. See, I'm catch back up in the chat. Nice, Roy Bear. What do you call a drummer that broke up with his girlfriend? Well put. And yes, I've known many that are quite like that. Honky Bear has a YouTube. Roy Bear. You're awesome, dude. I love those classic drummer jokes. They are great. Oh, no, stop. I thought I just knocked off the, I just got rid of the chat window. That's not what I wanted to do. What is this? Oh, invention of music. I thought I lost everybody there. Let's see here. Let's do the pop-out chat again. Thankfully, I thought I just took my own stream and ended it. That's why I was freaking out a little bit. Like, no, don't do that. The origin of music. Let's see. I was in a band in high school. Got a bunch of drummers. Yes, you'll do that. What do you call somebody who hangs out with musicians? A drummer. I've heard all kinds, guys, and I've deserved all kinds, plenty too, because I've been the stereotypical drummer many times in my life. But I think if more drummers read 12 Rules for Life, they could potentially change that stereotype. It's entirely possible. I wonder how much of it is biologically driven, and how much of it is societally constructed. Right? Could have that argument for the typical drummer behaviors. Well, drummers in Scandinavia, it was predicted that you would see drummers become far more industrious, and you'd see them behaving like adults, perhaps. I mean, gosh. But we see the exact opposite. We see drummers behaving like animals. And they say things like, "Me go bye-bye to Scandinavia." Yeah, I had to do that. Hey, there's the man. What's happening, dude? Love Bear is in the house. Good to see you, dude. Glad you could join us. Yeah, talking about drums a little bit today. And I was doing my Jordan Peterson impression, which is really a bit of a Kermit impression, but with a bit of a Canadian accent. And that's always fun. But then, of course, I had to break into my animal. Did I assume your instrument? No, I mixed you up with Harold. That's what I did. Oh man, yeah, I'll drop some JBP once in a while. Harold, for people who don't know, Harold Green is a good buddy of mine. Most of you have heard me talk about him, and you've seen him here in the chats. But he's my brother in music, and more importantly, brother in the Lord in Christ. And he has mentored me in both music and scripture, and he's just been my friend through a lot of stuff in life for the last like about 10 years. Dude, we've known each other 10 years. That's a little creepy, man. Decade. We've spent a decade around each other, dude. That's wild. That's getting close to being like a quarter of my life. It's more than a quarter of my life right now. So I'm a fan. Yeah, you get to know Dom. He's a good guy. He's up from Minnesota, and you got Honky Bear in here. Jeremy, he's a good cat. Jeremy, I think you'd enjoy getting to know Harold. You guys should connect. He's down there. Harold's down there in South Carolina, killing it, doing music direction and just being a boss as a guitar player, of course. But if you guys want to see some great music, you need to go to haroldgreenmusic.com. Get his album Love. You got to have that. Buy yourself a copy. It's probably one of the best albums of all time. Maybe I'm biased, but because I've played shows live and stuff, but you know, it's fun. I dig it. No, North Carolina. I'm sorry. You're right. How dare I? That's inappropriate that I mixed the two. South Carolina is where the Salute of Cymbals factory is at. So, you know, both are great. And where Harold's at and where the Salute of Cymbals factory is at. So, hey guys, also you want to look up a group called Grady's Hat, right? You want some crazy good funky stuff. You need to get some Grady's Hat. And Harold, if you could throw a link up in here for Grady's Hat, where they can get your albums and stuff like that. I want people to buy up some Grady's because they will love it. It is so good. There's a tune that Grady's did back in the day called Flibberty Flute. And Harold rearranged that for his Love album with full horn section. Hey, Roy Bear, good to see you, man. Glad you could join us. Yeah, he rearranged Flibberty Flute for the Love album with full horn section. Oh, okay, you guys are all on the YouTube. I'll put it out there. Grady's Grady, Grady's Hat, and it's such funky good stuff, man. He showed me the original Grady's version of Flibberty Flute back in the day, like when I first met him, and I've been digging into that tune for close to a decade now. To think about that, and boy, it is. Flibberty Flute. It's not that far off, man. So Harold, I'll tell it for you if that's all right. I'll tell the background because Harold does this in live shows, but it had some trouble in his past with sleep apnea, and he was driving around with the guys doing shows, and he's like half awake, half asleep. You know, on I guess you said you were on the road. Feel free to correct me if I say something that's out of place here. But in the midst of this being in and out of sleep while on the road, he just says like a phrase, Flibberty Flute, and it gets the other guys laughing. They're talking about this. Hey, Steve, good morning. Glad to see you here. Um, yeah, and I think you had said something, Harold, about like you had this idea that maybe the universe was made of flibberty flu. Like that's what it was all like in between the space between stars. It was all flibberty flu. And so at least I don't remember if you remember that conversation or if you agree that's what you had said about it. Maybe I have it wrong, but whatever the case may be, it's one of my favorite tunes. It's so fun to play because it's complex and yet it's pretty simple at the same time. It's a lot of soloing, it's modal stuff. For those of you that know what I'm talking about music wise. Um, yes, I do have a big drum, Inspector Bear. What's up? That's what's happening. Um, Glad to have people in the house. So Fred Nort, good morning. Glad to see you guys. Boy, it's getting filled up in here. We currently have, guys, we've got 15 people in this room right now. That's crazy. That's awesome. I'm super, super pumped for that. Fibbledy flu. Yes. It's a little different than flibberty. But yes. Yes, yes. And Harold's always got the good 70s vibe with his funk and fusion stuff. It's so good, man. Um, but I learned a lot about being a drummer, right? And what my job was from Harold. Like, okay, get this. I spent about 21 or 2 months in the United States Army as a drummer with the 3rd Infantry Band, 3rd Infantry Division Band, playing a variety of styles, getting trained by world-class drummers. I mean, guys that are just dynamos that went to music conservatories. They definitely dug in, and they were just unbelievably talented people. I had a guy who was from Cuba, and he emigrated to the States. I think he and his wife came in a raft or a bathtub or something to get out of Cuba years ago, and they got in here, and he was doing work. He had family that lived here, and he didn't want to. He got into the Army, and he didn't want to stay doing the gig he came in the Army as. So I think a brother back home in Cuba sent him some drumsticks or something like that, or told him what he needed to pick up, and so he started practicing like 8 hours a day and became this monster in no time. I mean, he was incredible, so talented, especially like the Latin stuff, just hands down, unbelievable. Um, Kind of like guys that grow up like in the gospel church kind of scene, um, and may not have as much like formal instruction, and they're just dynamos. They're just unbelievable, ridiculous. Um, so yeah, I was around those kind of guys. Then I come home, right, and I start living life back here in Illinois, and I meet Harold, and he sort of takes me under his wing and gives me experience to understand what it'd be like to work in a studio, to get some of these specifics down, to really hone my capabilities and my listening, my understanding of theory, all of this stuff. And then it's like, you need to go back to school and learn music and then go teach. You should be teaching. Like it was that inspiration to go and teach and do all that pushed me to do what I'm doing now. And yeah, just continual encouragement to say you have talent, you have abilities. Yeah, dude, I miss that. I miss those times. I wish I had some more of those recordings somewhere. I have a few, but he was having me work on some of his older tunes and things like that he'd written. Um, and it was unbelievable as an experience, like to do it, take over and over and over again to see how I could constantly improve it and get it better. Right, I could see more and more detail. Like I didn't know that detail existed. I could not only like see what I was doing, as I was playing, but I could hear things. I could hear subtle differences in my timekeeping. Like if you play, uh, for example, a group, I'm gonna Honky. I have not seen for Love or Country. I have to see that at some point. Hey, Kodiak, welcome. Sergeant P says hi, not gay Dave Rubin. So Harold, I got to tell you about this before I show them this example, but got to go look up on Steve Pender's channel. And that no soy is all Owen Benjamin, dude. That's what that's about. Yeah, Owen Benjamin has that song "Soy Boy," and I'll have to pop you a link for it. But it's so good. Look up Owen Benjamin "Soy Boy," and it is hilarious. It's one of my favorites. It's all of our favorites. We love that stuff. But no, who said what? What was I telling you? So last night, you got to look up Steve Pinder's channel. I did an interview on Steve's show, and he and I were talking about a whole bunch of different things. And then it was Sergeant Peterson and I think Andrew J were popping out saying that my voice reminded them of Dave Rubin. I was like, thank you so much for saying that I sound like a gay Jewish man that agrees with everything. That's that's what I want to be remembered for. So yeah, it's pretty funny. I am now not gay Dave Rubin. That's my nickname. So at any rate, I'm going to give you a couple examples here of a groove, and I want you to hear the difference between when I'm just playing the groove without thinking about timing, and then when I change my timing a little bit, right? So I'll start putting mechanisms in there that help me keep my time more consistently, like. So I'm in time, sort of. I'm keeping it there, but I'm going to show you a couple things. I'm going to put on a metronome real quick here. Let's see here and show you the difference that it makes. Let's see, my metronome. Let's see if I can tap that tempo where I was at about. Let's see, 60. That's about 60. That's a little faster than 60. Yeah, it's about 85. I'll go 87. Right with it. So when you're having a standard to go along with you, right, to show you where the tempo is at, you don't necessarily need to have that all the time, right? The idea is that the more you do it in practice, the more you'll naturally do it live, right? So I'll show you it again, but I'll put my own metronome into place as I do this, right? I'll start doing things to help me keep that time. So I'll just give myself a cue on it like that. So I'm counting it myself. One more time. That was a little fast. So I'm now keeping time internally, right? I'm taking little mechanisms. Once I've internalized that tempo that I want to be at, I'm doing things to make sure that I stay there, that I feel this tempo inside and maintain it, right? That's what professionals do at an even higher level than I can imagine now. But thank you, Harold. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, it's little details, right? Tiny little details that you begin to have a bigger perspective on that help you serve that purpose, right? If I come in here and say, I'm just going to play drums and I'm not thinking about what I'm doing, right? I'm just coming in here and because I like it, it feels fun. If it's just about making me feel like I'm having fun, then you're only ever going to go so far with it. Fun is great and fun is useful, but to a point, right? It's not an end all by any means. This ties directly into what Steve and I were talking about last night. If your only purpose is to create art for art, like just doing whatever the heck you're doing, and there's no greater purpose behind it, then who knows what kind of stuff you'll come up with and say, oh, it's totally okay. I'm just doing it for the sake of doing it. Then you don't have any force guiding what content you create. You just recklessly with abandon create whatever the heck you want to, and that can breed some wonderful stuff. I've heard plenty of people that have that approach, and they made some great art. But over time, the effect that has on society at large, if that's the mindset behind our art on the whole, it's degradative, right? It will degrade rather than lift up, right? Because people will inevitably explore the dark side of things more and more and more. It will become more and more self-serving, and it's just about seeking pleasure rather than serving a purpose, right? When I'm doing this, and any good professional knows when you're doing this, you're there to serve a purpose. The drums are there to keep everybody together, right? To keep that music infused with forward motion, right? Or even if it's a laid back ballad kind of thing, or something bluesy, maybe you want it to lean back a little bit. And I can kind of show you what I'm talking about with that. I'll put my drum deepener, this little piece of mylar thing I put on top. It drops the sound a little bit down lower, and I'll loosen the snares up. Should be a little, yeah, we'll try it. So it's kind of a blues thing. Let me get this into 6/8. It should be like this. There's a you get a good blues kind of shuffly thing going on back there, just a laid back kind of feel. You have to you're not driving it as much, but you're keeping that whole ensemble, that whole song, the presence of that music. You're keeping the spirit of it moving at the rate that it should be. Harold says inner clock, and he's very right. And thanks, you posted the iTunes link for Love. That's awesome. Go buy Love, guys. Everybody, pick up a copy of Love from Harold Green. It's not expensive. It's a good album, and it's well worth it. Every track. If I had to pick one over others, and you're just gonna buy one track, Man Inside Me. That is by far my favorite tune on the whole album. I mean, I love the Liberty Flu, but Man Inside Me, and you've got the great Tom Catone on drums. Amazing guy, New York guy that is incredible. A good friend of Harold's. They went to Berkeley together back in the day. I believe that's right, isn't it? You guys were both at Berkeley, and wrote that tune way back when. And it is it's one of my favorites of all time. I love playing that song live. Maybe one of these days I'll do a cover of it on here, and I'll play drums along with it for you guys. But what would be more awesome is if I could get a live video of Harold and I playing it together. That would be the bee's knees. Yeah. So drums are there to serve a purpose, right? And you don't have to believe that, but you're going to be way better if you agree with it. I'm talking about guys like Steve Gadd or Antonio Sanchez or Peter Erskine, Neil Peart. Any of these guys recognize that the drums are there to serve a purpose. And when you accept that and you take your role in serving that purpose, you will be stellar in comparison. So this serves as a mirror to life for me. That's one of the reasons I love music. it's supposed to serve a much larger purpose, not just doing it for doing it, right? Because you could say that about anything, right? But it's abundantly clear to me through the experiences I've had that one needs a purpose, a meaning to guide them through life. Neil Beard. I didn't know they had the Vulcan V shape as an emoji in there. That's hilarious, man. Good job, Impaler. Yes. Bass is massively important. You know, we let the bass players think that they're in charge. And no, we need to be totally in sync with those. And I'm not talking about the boy band. We need to be locked in with our bass players, right? Whoever we're working with, because we are the foundation of that rhythm. You think about it, bass takes the spectrum of sound that's at the lower end of the register, right? It's all those deep, low tones. Bass players show up late all the time. That's awesome, Steve. I don't know. I've met some pretty on the ball bass players that are pretty much right there, but then not all of them. Some of them are a little better. But at any rate, bass players, they take the lower end of the sound spectrum in a mix, right? In a musical mix, what you're hearing. Because when you listen to music, it spans a spectrum. Well-written music, like really, really intricate, deeply well-written music, doesn't just sort of center on one area of the sound spectrum. It spans over a whole range of different tones, right? And so the bass is much more covering that lower register. The drums, well, I'll step back. The guitar covers that medium to high register. Let's put it that way. Piano can cover the full range, right? But so can drums. Drums covers low pitches with the bass drum, right? Or the floor tom. Deep, low pitches. Some more medium. Snare's starting to get up there. Cymbals, they're up in the much higher part of the register. People who love Rush probably recognize that. Totally biffed it in the middle there. I started losing my stick. Didn't have good grip. I'm trying to angle myself so that I can make the camera see what I'm doing. Could have progressed in jazz, fusion, Hendrix. Could music have progressed in jazz, fusion, Hendrix, Vi, Zappa, etc., without drugs? I think so. I think that's possible. I have a guitarist that I knew back in the Army band who actually wrote a whole paper on that, like the history of sex, drugs, rock and roll, and how music progressed because of the introduction of drugs so heavily. I think it could have. I mean, I understand. I know Peterson talks a lot about the effect of psychedelics on sort of leading people forward at times with ideas and such, that it's played that part in some societies. But I definitely think it's possible because I've seen amazing people create music that were not affected by drugs while they were producing. Rush did some drugs in the 70s, but they kind of got off that as they went forward. You know, there's a musician you should totally check out, and he's one of my favorites. Stylistically, he stayed in more of the 70s Elton John-ish style. But a guy named Keith Green, I don't know how many have heard of this guy. He was a Christian musician. He didn't start that way, though. He was an agnostic. I don't know what he considered himself. Hey, Zach, what's up, dude? Bunch of quitters. Welcome back, brother. Glad to see you. I need to call you today, and I need to make sure I get in touch with you about making sure I have a link for getting the rest of those files from you so I can start doing some work on that. I wanna get some tracks produced. I want some woolly hooves, man. I'm all about it. Trying to think now. I lost my train of thought. Keith Green, thank you. Yes, in a sense, he was. He was a piano player, and he was a child prodigy. He was put into the spotlight way young, like at 10 years old. He was writing a hit song. At 11, he was recording with a professional label. He did some TV acting when he was a kid. Really, really incredible talent. So he was raised like Christian Science, I believe, and he got away from a lot of that as he got older. He wasn't interested. He explored Hasidic Judaism or some variant of it. I don't know. And he began to explore Eastern religions. He got deep into using acid and a bunch of other drugs as he was growing up. Wanted to have experiences, and he was seeking knowledge, seeking truth was his whole gig. On the Prime play, it was on Prime. Amazon Player only has his SJW stuff. I didn't know that he had SJW stuff. Huh. I have to look that up. Yes, you're right, dude. Oh, it was so good. Yeah, he wrote some great stuff. I'll have to look that up, man. I didn't know. He was definitely interesting cat, and he got older and he was playing piano in clubs and different things like that, singing covers. And I guess he started to explore like this Jesus figure in history and wanted to know more about him, and had different conversations with friends. So he decided to just really give it a go and explore it. And it changed his life. He was a completely different person from what he'd been before that. And he pursued life with abandon as he had that literal come to Jesus moment. And the music he wrote was so intense, like his passion that he infused into every song was amazing. Go look up the greatest hits of Keith Green and you'll get a taste. And I highly recommend that. Massively influential in my growth. But that guy always had solid drummers, and they just did perfect for the songs. I didn't appreciate it when I was younger, but I came to understand as I got, because I was all about the Neil Peart, the crazy, Terry Bozzio giant drum kits. Yes, to obey is better than sacrifice. Massively convicting tune. Steve was a pioneer, Harold. You're right. Oh yeah, I know what you meant. I knew what you meant. Yeah, because I mixed the two up too. Steve Green and Keith Green many times. I don't know if Phil Cahey and Keith Green ever worked together. That would be cool to know. I mean, it would be awesome if they did, because they're both stellar. Both were stellar. It was sad. He died the same year I was born. Keith Green died in 1982, like about 6 months or so before I was born. Of course you saw Cahey, right? Red Green rules. Dude, that's Harold Green. What are you talking, Red Green? Oh, did somebody else drop that in here? Red Green is hilarious, by the way. No, and so I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. I'm watching the chat too much. Yeah, he had a friend who had a private plane, and they were going to try to go around to shows and different engagements that Keith had via private plane. So they were out doing a test drive of this where they could take off from their property. They had a little field that they could use as an airstrip, and they took off. And I guess a few minutes into the flight, there was a problem and they crashed. And so Keith and two of his kids and their friend who was piloting all died. And so his wife was left to raise the other two of their four. But that was in early 82. And I didn't even know about this guy until I was about 13 or 14. I think my uncle introduced me to some of his stuff. And yeah, profoundly had an impact on me growing up. Yeah, it was very sad, very, very sad. But you go look up the greatest hits, you'll get a good taste of what a genius that was not totally drug ridden can do. And Phil Cahey, I don't believe he's a drug guy, and he's written some unbelievable stuff. Neil Morse, Harold knows what I'm talking about. That guy is on another plane, right? And he's heavily Beatles influenced, right? But he's still a prog rock guy and does wild good stuff. Harold, we gotta tap that cat, right? We've gotta flip and tap that cat to see if we can open for him. We got to make it happen, dude. I mean, you would probably want, either Jeremy or Tom on that gig, and I wouldn't blame you because that's just appropriate. You know what I mean? You should have they should have the opportunity to do something like that. He is the man. He is the man. I found out about Neil Morse back in 2000 and was it 2005? Just before I was getting ready to head out to Kuwait for a year, and I took that music with me to Kuwait. His first album was Testimony. It's a double disc. It was all his testimony about his come to Jesus moment. But then his album One was the first thing that I was exposed to, and that's unbelievable. Yes, you do like having two drummers, bro. One moment. No, dearest, I have not fed them yet. And my beautiful lady bear just came back. She had a job this morning she had to go do. So Neil Morse is no joke. Yes, you are absolutely right. David Meese, I haven't seen. I've heard plenty talk about that guy. Yes. You did post that a long time ago. And I think I knew about it, but I'd forgotten. Hang on. I need to open that for later. Copy. I need to get that up for later. Paste that. Okay. I've just been so behind, man. So it's not your fault. It's all me. I'll take the hit on that. Oh, well, it says it can't be reached. I just tried to open that link up and it didn't do it. It said no. Site can't be reached. Burgos. Oh, is it not spelled right? That's weird. I don't know what's going on there. I'll have to dig into that later. Figure that out. Where'd you go? There he is. That's very cool, brother. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, it's the same link that you posted before. For some reason, it didn't work. Hang on a second. Oh, good. It opened up a separate window. Well, that worked. I tried to copy and paste the link into a window instead of just clicking on it. When I clicked on it, it came up. Now, question, can I download those files? Are those the individual tracks? Or is that just the takes that we made, like the working versions? Zach, I should ask you. Harold, you have opened for Kansas, and I can understand you'd want to do it again. You want to open for Kansas now. Dude, I was just listening to the Prelude Implicit, which is Kansas's most recent album. For those that don't know, get it. Awesome. Was going running listening to that the other day. So good. Oh, okay. Just as raw as they could be. But I can't download those, can I? I don't know that it'll let me download. I might be able to. I'll do something. Yeah, there's some good stuff in there. I'm going to have to get on that. Let's see here. Yeah, when Harold was rocking it back in the day with Grady's hat, they opened. Hey, Melvin Telgari, welcome. Yeah, you've been here before, huh? I don't recognize you. That's why I was curious. Yeah, I've got the hairy legs going on. They're here, right? So if you've got a fetish, I'm sorry, I don't always oblige. I'm just facing a different direction. I don't have the camera up there today. Yeah, I know, Mel. You're cool, dude. But welcome. Glad you're in here. So are you a bear, Melvin? Have you been hanging around in the bear community for a while, or how'd you find out about the channel? Always curious to learn how people come to know the big drum bear. Pardon me, a little coffee. Let's see, Tom Emmanuel. I'm gonna have to check that out too. Yep, that's what's up. By the way, Melvin, since you're a verified Melvin Bear, I need to. Oh no, stop it. Hang on. Let's see. Welcome, Melvin. You are now wrenchified as well. That's right. I pass those wrenches out like candy. Let's see. Yes, Owen Benjamin type bear. You're probably good to know. Well, I'm heavily influenced by musical acts that were at their peaks 40 years ago. I've always been since I was a kid. I was never into the modern pop stuff near as much, or any other genres near as much. Although Neil Morse was not at his peak 40 years ago. Neil Morse is the much more recent guy. Harold Green is not at his peak. That dude's still rocking it. So yeah, that's what that's coming from. Who's a sick guitarist from Oz? Oh, Tommy Emmanuel. Okay, catching with you now. So at any rate, back to drumming. I want to do a couple other things. I want to talk to you about drumming wise. So the building blocks of drums, like I said before, are the rudiments, right? And you can even break those down further, like I had shown you at the Benny Greb stuff, breaking it into individual letters, like binary letters and trinary letters. Just the individual little bits and pieces, breaking stuff down to its constituent elements, right? Think of it kind of like chemistry. We're dealing with the base elements of how all this stuff is put together. And songs are much more complex creatures in a sense. They've got a much more in-depth genetic code, and this is all the base pair sequences, if you will, of putting it all together. So I take something simple like the paradiddle. The paradiddle is one of these rudiments. It's number, how do they number a paradiddle? Usually it ends up being number 16 in the count of the 40 rudiments as recognized by the Percussive Arts Society. So paradiddle, very simple. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. That's our paradiddle. Now you can play that other places too, like I'm going to type that snare. Play those kind of things around your drum kit, right? You can take those building blocks and build on them. You can put variations on them. This is one of my favorite little grooves that I developed a while back. Now, how did I do that? A weird kind of little groove pattern. That's not quite how it originally was. It was a little bit different, but I haven't played it in a long time, so I haven't thought it through. I have to go back and look at what I did. If you go to my Steady in Time Instagram profile, you'll find an old black and white video of me playing on a small little kit with just a cymbal, hi-hat, snare, and bass drum. And I'm playing this this groove that I'm trying to remember how to do. But it's composed of like paradiddle type figures, double paradiddles, things like that. And it's just taking those fundamental building blocks and using them practically, using them as a groove kind of tool, the groove, the stuff that music slides right into. It's a little groove that it locks with to make it slide down the way. It kind of helps it move forward, right? When it grooves, you know it because you want to dance. You want to move to that groove, right? It sounds hokey, but it's the truth. We respond physiologically to well-crafted groove. It's just the tendency of people to do that. And these building blocks are tools for us to create that feeling, that emotion, if you will, within a song. Uh, and it's part of our purpose to get better and better at producing groove that can do that well. So yeah, the practical application that I see for that in our lives is that it's important for us to understand what the fundamental building blocks are of our everyday. And I think folks like Peterson have done a great job on hitting on that. That's why I talk about him all the time, because I'm fascinated by him. But I'm fascinated because it's a great articulation of things that I've always known for a long time, and put into like Harold probably could attest to this. He knows it. I've done it. I'm sure maybe Zach's seen it. Honky, I'm sure you've experienced it. Mayor, you've probably seen that at times from people too. Anybody who's been in like a church scene ever, um, you can easily see how sometimes things get to be spoken of in a little bit of Christianese. Um, we kind of get into a lingo that we understand, but sometimes other people around us don't get, right? It's like we can say the stuff to each other, but um, if we're always talking like that, uh, it's going to be harder for people that are not part of that culture to latch onto it. So knowing how to articulate the things that we believe, that we know to be true, but in language that done in language that gets outside of that bubble, right? Allows us to not only communicate more broadly about the stuff that we know to be true and why it's important, why it's of value for people to incorporate into their lives, but it helps me definitely think more deeply about those kind of things and how well or not well I'm pursuing the stuff I claim to believe is worth my time, right? That is my purpose. How well am I pursuing that? So when we're able to shift our perspective on how we think about those things, we are going to enable ourselves to pursue living them out better. That's been my experience. Um, yes, Zach. That's a part of a way to put that, because when you speak in the language that comes from that culture of being within your church family or something like that, it's very easy to come across that way when that's not what you mean to do at all. You're trying to just share what's deeply in your heart, but what those things mean to you mean something very different to somebody else who maybe has had negative experiences with Christianity. Ravi Zacharias had a book um, that talks about that. I wish I could think of the title now. It had to do with people having left Christianity for various reasons, and it was his response to why people had done that. Trying to understand the struggles or problems they'd had um, in their experiences with church family or with the faith in general, with the Bible. Yes, churchianity happens all too often, and it's not because people are just dumb or they're not thinking and they don't care. It's that they're just not aware of it. We don't think about. We have our own echo chambers, right? Even as Christians, we tend to get in echo chambers, and it's so important to be able to step outside of that and have other people that have deeply thought about these things try to articulate some of these points, like tell the truth, clean up your room, the good classic stuff. Like I said, Akira the Don is doing a great job of taking the Peterson stuff out of just the academic forums, right? Because that's an echo chamber in a sense of in itself. It's a whole culture, and if you're not more of an academic, you're going to have trouble grasping on to even some of those concepts. So he takes that and puts it in lo-fi hip hop, right? He takes all this Peterson dialogue and puts it into hip hop, and I'm like, that's awesome, right? Because now people that won't sit down and read maps of meaning or 12 rules, they're going to intake all of those concepts, right, through stuff that they can connect with. So you're learning to translate it basically into another language, another culture, but there's still the same ideas. It's massively important, and you get better at knowing how to do that even on the fly by I agree with Peterson. Yes. That's right, Andrew J. Um, oh my gosh, guys. I think that's a good place to stop. I'm dying. Yeah, I've been called the not gay Dave Rubin as of last night. For those that hadn't heard that, um, it's so funny. It's cracking me up. Uh, yes, there is an Ebonics Bible. I've seen that, and that's flipping cool. It's awesome, and it takes a lot of NGDR. What is NGDR? Hey, living Kermit. I love you guys, man. I'll tell you what, I'm going to head out. I'm going to spend some time with my wife, and I'm going to go do a gig for her today and help her out with another dog she needs walked. So, what I will say is dig into into music if you have an interest in it. I'll talk more about it as time goes on, but the big message that I wanted to carry in with you was the idea of the fundamentals behind it. That I get better when I break things down to their fundamentals and try to understand what things are at their absolute core, and work on developing those core things. Right, getting stuff like single strokes and double strokes better. Right? And to develop that, get my hands moving the sticks better grip. That's going to allow me to control those better. Those little tiny details is what my drumming is essentially made up of. And the more that I improve that, the more I can focus on more complex things, right? So, because that stuff will come naturally the more I perfect it. Yeah, it's essentially a baby step idea. You're right. You go well, it's more like it's like that, but it's also like a back to basics idea. Always think about how to distill things down to their constituent elements, their basic parts, and not just in drumming, but in all of life. Right? Learn how to be patient enough because it takes time. Be patient enough to distill things down to their constituents. Be reductive, right? And try to understand things at their base. And that is true as well in your relationships with people. Um, try to understand people at their fundamental levels and yourself first, right? Because you're gonna have a harder time understanding other people if you don't really get to understand yourself. That means being honest about yourself, recognizing stuff in yourself that you would otherwise not like to. Um, it's hard. It's not an easy thing to do. There's a lot of stuff I'm not proud of in my own behavior, but there's a lot of things that I am grateful for. I see improvement. I see things moving toward serving that ultimate purpose that I talk about all the time. So, uh, can I lead out with Tommy Emmanuel? I certainly will give it a go. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can pull it up. Um, yeah, it's going to take my chat away, but I'm going to give it a go. What I will say to you guys is, peace to you bears.
If you can do this.
Well, I'm going to get an Allstate ad first. And I can't even skip it. That's lovely. I mean, you want to insure your home and your car. So promo code Big Drum Bear because I'm playing the ads, right? Oh yes, I have seen this. Yeah, this guy is ridiculous. Harold and I were talking about this a little while back. It is one of the best. Did I lose you guys? Where'd you go? Oh, darn it. Oh, well, I gave you a little taste of it. I wanted it to fade out as I left, but I'll work on the OBS and see if I can't get that set up so we can do some fade in and out stuff and it gets more professional. All right, Bears, engage your mind, engage your body, engage your heart. Seek to serve the ultimate purpose. Peace to you, Bears. Love y'all. Have a great day.